The smell of antiseptic in this luxury hospital room was thick and cold, the scent of an ending. It clung to every fiber of my shirt, crept into every breath, yet it couldn't mask the smell of death lurking in the corner of the room. My father, Liang, the man who had built a real estate empire from scratch, a man respected throughout Shanghai, was now just a frail figure, lost amidst the pristine white sheets. The machines beeped rhythmically, an artificial pulse of life trying to hold back a soul that was ready to depart. My elder brother, Liang Bao, and my younger sister, Liang Mei, were standing in the hallway outside. Their voices drifted in, not with worry, but with a poorly concealed impatience. They were discussing the upcoming board meeting, the division of shares, the will. To them, the man lying here was no longer a father, but a contract about to expire. I sat motionless in the chair beside his bed, holding his thin, liver-spotted hand. His skin was cold. I am Liang Wei, the second son, a history professor. In my family's eyes, I am a respectable failure. I don't generate profits. I have no shares in the company. I don't attend their lavish parties. I am just a bookworm, an academic ornament for the Liang family, so they can boast that they possess more than just money. Wei. My father's voice was hoarse, as faint as a silk thread about to snap. I leaned closer. I'm here, father. His eyes, once as sharp as a hawk's, were now clouded, looking at me with difficulty. Bao and Mei, where are they? They're outside, father. I'll call them in. No. His hand tightened its grip on mine, a final surge of strength. Just you alone. My heart clenched. There was something different in his eyes, a regret, a fear I had never seen before. He gasped for air, each breath a struggle. There's something, I must tell you, before it's too late. I remained silent, listening. You, Liang Wei. He paused, gathering his last ounce of strength. You are not my biological son. The room suddenly felt like it had stopped spinning. The beeping of the machines seemed to fade into a distant void. His words were like an invisible hammer blow to my mind, shattering the world I had known for 45 years. Not his son? Then who was I? He coughed violently, a small trickle of blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. I quickly wiped it with a tissue, my hand trembling. Father, what are you saying? The truth, he whispered. Your real father was named Chen Feng, my best friend, the partner who built everything with me. Chen Feng. I had heard the name faintly in old stories, a faded shadow long gone. 40 years ago, his voice filled with bitterness. I betrayed him. I used deceit to seize the entire company. He went bankrupt, died in poverty, and his wife, your biological mother, passed away soon after from grief. My head was spinning. I wasn't the son of a successful tycoon, but the son of a man who had been destroyed by the very person I had called father my entire life. Before he died, my father continued, his breathing growing weaker, Chen Feng managed to leave a will, proof of his ownership of the company, for his only son. That's you. I adopted you. Partly out of guilt, partly out of fear. I was afraid that one day the truth would come out. He struggled to lift his other hand to his neck and removed a chain. Hanging from it was a white jade pendant, exquisitely carved with a dragon. It felt strangely warm as he placed it in my palm. Everything, the will, the proof, is hidden inside it. Chen Feng designed it. Only you, his flesh and blood, can open it. I stared at the jade pendant. It was more than a piece of jewelry. It was my past, my identity, a legacy built on lies and betrayal. Forgive me, Wei, his eyes pleaded. I have lived my whole life in wealth, but never had a single peaceful night's sleep. Take back what is yours, and forgive a coward. The heart monitor suddenly let out a long, piercing alarm. The green line had turned flat. Liang Jun was dead. Liang Bao and Liang Mei rushed in, followed by nurses and doctors. Mei's fake sobs echoed. Bao's commanding shouts were jarring. But I heard nothing. I just sat there, motionless, my hand clutching the jade pendant. Its warmth seemed to send a cold current of truth through my veins. In that moment of chaos, as my adoptive family performed their play of grief, a decision formed in my mind, as cold and sharp as a blade. I would not reveal this secret. Not yet. They thought they were about to inherit an empire. They didn't know they were merely tenants in a house that didn't belong to them. And I, the scorned son, the useless bookworm, now held the key to it all. I would not reclaim my inheritance immediately. No, that would be too easy. First, I would give them a chance. A test. I wanted to see, when faced with a ghost from the past, a trivial debt of honor, whether they would choose truth or money. I wanted to see their true faces when the masks of wealth and power were stripped away, and I would be the one to strip them layer by layer. Liang Jun's funeral was grand, befitting his status in Shanghai society. The guests were as numerous as ants, from high-ranking politicians to business tycoons, all wearing solemn faces and offering rehearsed condolences. Liang Bao, in an expensive black suit, received the guests, shaking hands and nodding professionally. He looked more like a CEO hosting a corporate event than a son who had just lost his father. Liang Mei sobbed in her husband's arms, her tears falling perfectly, enough to evoke sympathy but not enough to smudge her meticulously applied makeup. I stood back in a corner, a silent shadow amidst the ostentatious display. I did not cry. My pain could not be expressed in tears. It was a deep, empty chasm in my chest, where the image of the father I had respected my whole life had collapsed, leaving only the ashes of deceit. My hand unconsciously clutched the jade pendant in my pocket. It felt like an anchor, keeping me from being swept away in the storm of emotions. My mother, a woman who lived for the family's face, moved among the guests, her face gaunt, but still maintaining an air of dignity. She stopped in front of me, her eyes red. "Wei, are you all right? You look so pale." "I'm fine, Mother," I replied, my voice flat. She sighed, smoothing a crease on my shirt. "Your father is gone. The burden now falls on your elder brother's shoulders. You are an educated man. You should advise him. Don't let our family fall into disarray." I looked deeply into her eyes. Did she know the truth? Had she been a part of this deceptive play for 45 years? A chill ran down my spine. It was very likely. She was the kind of person who would do anything to protect this so-called perfect family. After the funeral, the family gathered at the Liang family villa. The atmosphere was heavy, but not with grief. It was the tension of an impending power struggle. The family lawyer, Mr. Zhang, was present. According to the will Mr. Liang Jun made 5 years ago, Mr. Liang Jun. Zhang began to read, his voice monotonous. All his shares in the Liang Corporation will be divided as follows: 50% to the eldest son, Liang Bao, 20% to the youngest daughter, Liang Mei, 10% to his wife, and the remaining 10% will be placed in a trust fund. Liang Bao nodded in satisfaction. Liang Mei glanced at him, a flicker of envy in her eyes. And finally, Lawyer Zhang continued, to the second son, Liang Wei. Mr. Liang Jun leaves the apartment he currently resides in, and a cash sum of 5 million yuan. An awkward silence filled the room. 5 million yuan. Compared to the multi-billion-dollar corporation, it was nothing short of a handout. Liang Bao coughed, breaking the silence. Father always knew Wei had no interest in business. This is a reasonable arrangement. That's right, Mei quickly added. Big brother can use that money to focus on his research. Father was so thoughtful. Were they trying to appease me, or were they appeasing their own guilt? I looked at them, my face expressionless. I didn't care about the money. What I cared about was the truth. "I have no objections to the will," I said, my voice surprisingly loud in the room. All eyes turned to me. "But there is something I want to ask." Liang Bao frowned. "What is it?" I took a deep breath. It was time to plant the seed. Before he passed, Father spoke to me about an old friend. His name was Chen Feng. The air in the room seemed to freeze. I saw my mother flinch, her face turning pale. Liang Bao narrowed his eyes, his expression becoming wary. "Chen Feng? I've never heard Father mention that name." "Oh, me neither," Mei said, but her voice sounded a bit unnatural. Father said, I continued, carefully observing their reactions, that it seems our family owed him something. A debt of honor. Father told me to find out and settle it properly, so he could rest in peace. I had deliberately used vague words. It seems debt of honor. I wanted to see how they would react to an unclear threat. Liang Bao scoffed, a smile full of contempt. "Wei, you must have misheard. Father's mind wasn't clear at the end. Our company does business fairly. We've never owed anyone anything." "But Father was very clear," I insisted. He seemed very tormented. "Enough," my mother suddenly spoke up, her voice sharp. "Your father has just been laid to rest. Don't bring up these baseless matters. Chen Feng is in the past, long gone. Don't dig it up." The panic in her voice confirmed my suspicions. She knew. She definitely knew. "I just want to fulfill my father's last wish," I said calmly. If we truly owe someone, we must repay it. That is the honor of the Liang family. Liang Bao stood up, pacing. All right. If you insist, I'll have someone look into it. But I'm telling you, 99% this is just an old man's confusion. Don't worry about it. Just take your money and live your life. He was trying to push me out of the game, treating me like a troublesome child. But he didn't know that this game was just beginning. And I wasn't a player. I was the one making the rules. That night, I returned to my apartment. I took out the jade pendant and placed it under the lamp. The white jade was translucent, the intricate lines of the dragon seeming to come alive. I fumbled, trying to open it, but there was no seam. My father had said only Chen Feng's flesh and blood could open it. A crazy idea flashed through my mind. I took a small needle, pricked my fingertip, and let a drop of blood fall onto the dragon's eye. A soft click sounded. The jade pendant split perfectly in two. Inside there was not a scroll, but a small old metal key with a number engraved on it. The will wasn't here. It was where this key could open. The seed of doubt had been planted, and now it was time to see what it would grow into. A flower of truth, or a thorn of greed. 2 days later, Liang Bao called me. His voice over the phone sounded relaxed, even cheerful. Wei, I'm near your university. Meet me at the coffee shop across the gate for a bit. I have something to tell you. I knew this day would come. His investigation had yielded results, and now it was time for him to make his move. All right, I'll be right there. The coffee shop had a European style, quiet and elegant. Liang Bao was already seated at a table near the window, wearing a flawless designer suit. He was always like that, cloaking himself in the appearance of success and power, like armor. He waved at me, a self-satisfied smile on his face. Have a seat, little brother, he said, pushing a pre-ordered cup of coffee towards me. Espresso, just the way you like it. A small gesture to show concern. A classic tactic. I sat down, waiting in silence. I had someone look into what you said, he began, stirring his coffee lightly. About that name, Chen Feng. And? I asked, looking directly into his eyes. He shrugged, a seemingly nonchalant gesture. There was indeed such a person. An old partner of our father, from the early days. But they went their separate ways a long time ago. His company later went bankrupt, and he is said to have passed away many years ago. There are no documents indicating that we owe him anything. Everything was above board. He was lying. I could see it in the way he avoided my gaze, in the tightness of his jaw. He had found something that worried him, and now he was here to bury it. So father was really mistaken? I asked, feigning innocence. Definitely, he asserted. Old people, sometimes they get obsessed with the past. But I understand your filial piety. You want to fulfill father's last wish. That's very commendable. He paused, took a sip of coffee, and then put the cup down decisively. And for that reason, I've decided to help you. I raised an eyebrow. Help me? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Listen, Wei, this matter, whether it's true or not, if it gets out, it's not good for the corporation's reputation. People will gossip, say that the Liang Corporation isn't transparent, that our father was a man of bad faith. The stock will be affected. You understand? I understand, I replied. Good, he nodded, satisfied. So, let's just assume there is a debt of honor, as you said, and we will pay it. He took a thick envelope from his briefcase and pushed it across the table to me. Inside is 10 million yuan, double what father left you. You can take it, on behalf of our family, and find that Mr. Chen Feng's descendants to pay them. Or, if you can't find them, just keep it for yourself. Consider it as you having helped the family solve a problem. After that, we will never mention the name Chen Feng again. Everything ends here. I looked at the envelope, then at Liang Bao. His face shone with the confidence of someone who believed money could solve everything. He wasn't paying a debt. He was buying my silence. 10 million yuan for a multi-billion-dollar empire. A bargain. You think father's honor, and the truth, is only worth 10 million yuan? I asked, my voice icy. The smile on Liang Bao's face vanished. He frowned. Wei, don't be so idealistic. This isn't a history lecture. This is business. I'm giving you a practical solution that benefits everyone. It benefits you, you mean? I said. You're scared. You investigated and found something that scares you. And now you want to use money to shut me up. Anger flared in his eyes. He could no longer pretend. Don't act all high and mighty with me, Liang Wei. What do you know? All you do is bury your head in dusty old books. Do you know what it takes to maintain this empire? Do you know how many people's livelihoods depend on it? You want to destroy it all because of some unclear words from a senile old man? I'm giving you a chance to back down with dignity. Don't be ungrateful. He had shown his true colors. A pragmatic, ruthless man, willing to trample on the truth to protect his own interests. I calmly pushed the envelope back towards him. I don't need your money. I just need the truth. And I will find it myself. I stood up. Thanks for the coffee. I turned and walked away, leaving Liang Bao sitting there, his face turning from red to white. I could feel his furious gaze burning into my back. He had tried the easiest way money and had failed. Now, I knew he wouldn't stop. He would resort to other means, more sinister, more dirty. The real battle had begun. He thought I was just a weak, easily bullied professor. He didn't know that a historian understands best about protracted wars, about the importance of strategy and patience. And I had both. As I stepped out of the coffee shop, I took out my phone and turned off the recording mode. The conversation just now, every arrogant word, every threat from Liang Bao, had been perfectly recorded. This was the first brick in the wall of evidence I was building. That wall, one day, would collapse on him. If Liang Bao was a direct head-on storm, then Liang Mei was a persistent drizzle, slowly seeping into the ground, eroding the foundation of determination. The next evening, she came to my apartment unannounced. Mei brought a container of chicken soup that she claimed to have made herself, a gesture of a sister concerned for her brother's health. "Big brother, you look so thin," she said, her voice full of concern as I opened the door. "Ever since father passed, you seem like a lost soul." I let her in. My apartment was small and simple, filled with books. It was a world completely opposite to the luxury of her villa. Mei's eyes darted around, a hint of pity crossing her face. She always viewed my life as a sad form of poverty. "Have a seat," I said, pointing to the old sofa. She placed the soup container on the table, then sat down, her delicate hands clasped together. "Big brother, I'm here because of what you said the other day, about Mr. Chen Feng." I remained silent, waiting for her performance. "Elder brother told me about your conversation," she began, her large eyes welling up with tears. "I can't believe he could treat you like that, using money to solve everything. He's too pragmatic, too cold. A smart opening, gaining my favor by criticizing Liang Bao. I understand you," she continued, her voice trembling. "You've always been a sentimental person, a man of honor. You want to fulfill father's last wish. I completely understand. But big brother," tears began to roll down her cheeks. "Have you thought about our family?" I was still silent. "Father has just been laid to rest. His ashes are not yet cold. The company is in a sensitive transition period. Elder brother is hot-tempered. If we bring up an old story from 40 years ago now, what will happen to our family? What will outsiders say? They'll say we siblings are fighting, scrambling for power right after our father's death. The shareholders will lose confidence. Mother, how heartbroken will she be?" She was playing on my weakness, or at least what she thought was my weakness: family sentiment, concern for my mother, and the fear of creating conflict. "I'm not saying you're wrong," she sobbed, "but some truths are better left undisturbed. Father lived with that secret his whole life. Perhaps he wouldn't want us to tear this family apart because of it. Perhaps his true last wish was to see us live in harmony, loving each other." It was a very plausible, very noble-sounding argument. But I knew, behind those tears and sweet words, was a fear no different from Liang Bao's. The fear of losing their lavish lifestyle, their status, everything they had. "So you mean I should stay silent?" I asked. She nodded, taking my hand. Her hand was soft but cold. "For the family, big brother. For father's peace. Let's just forget about it, okay? Let's pretend father never said anything. We siblings will be like before. I promise. I will talk to elder brother. He has to treat you better. I will convince him to give you more shares. You deserve more than that." It was a perfect performance. Tears, sentiment, and even a promise of material benefits. She and Liang Bao were two sides of the same coin. One used the stick, the other used the carrot. The ultimate goal was the same: to bury the truth. I gently withdrew my hand. "Mei, I appreciate your concern, but you are mistaken." She looked up, her tear-filled eyes full of surprise. "Mistaken? You think I'm doing this for money, for shares. You think I can be bought or coaxed, but I can't." I looked directly into her eyes, my voice firm. "I'm doing this for a man named Chen Feng, who died in injustice. I'm doing this for a woman who passed away in sorrow, who was my biological mother. And I'm doing this for myself, to find out who I truly am. I had intentionally said the words my biological mother. I wanted to see her reaction. Liang Mei's face changed. Confusion, panic, and a flicker of hatred appeared in her eyes before being masked by a look of distress. She knew, or at least she had heard of this secret. What? What are you talking about? She stammered. Your biological mother is our mother. Is she? I asked back, a hanging question. She jumped to her feet, her composure completely gone. You're crazy, you're really crazy. Father's death has shocked you into delusion. I'm not talking to you anymore. She hastily grabbed her purse and rushed to the door, forgetting the chicken soup still steaming on the table. Before slamming the door shut, she turned back to look at me, her eyes no longer sweet but filled with fear and hostility. The play was over. The crocodile tears had dried. Now only the true face of selfishness remained. Liang Mei, just like Liang Bao, would never accept the truth. They would fight to the end to protect their world of lies. I sat down, feeling a sense of exhaustion but also relief. I had known the outcome, but witnessing it still pained me. They were not just greedy. They were cowards, afraid to face the truth, afraid to face their father's sins. I looked at the chicken soup. I probably wouldn't eat it. Who knew, in a family like this, if anything was real, even a bowl of soup. I took out my phone and saved another note. Liang Mei. Emotional manipulation, promise of benefits, fear of the truth. The evidence was mounting, and my determination was growing stronger. After the failures of both Liang Bao and Liang Mei, I knew who would come to me next. 3 days later, my mother called, her voice tired and stern. Wei, come home for dinner this weekend. I need to speak with you alone. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. The Liang family villa was situated on a hill in the suburbs, a fortress of wealth, isolated from the bustling world below. As I drove through the automatic iron gates, I felt like a stranger intruding on a territory that wasn't mine. This feeling had never been clearer. The weekend dinner was held in a tense silence. Liang Bao and Liang Mei were both present, but they avoided looking at me. They exchanged bland talk about work and social events, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy. But the atmosphere was so thick you could cut it with a knife. After dinner, my mother said, Bao, Mei, you two go home first. I need to speak with Wei alone. Liang Bao glanced at me, a warning in his eyes, then nodded and pulled Mei away. The door closed, leaving only my mother and me in the vast living room. She didn't sit down. She walked to the window, looking out at the meticulously manicured garden under the lights. Do you know, she began, her voice distant, long ago, when your father and Mr. Chen Feng were just starting out, they used to sit in this very garden, which was just a barren piece of land then, and dream about the future? I remained silent. They were best friends, closer than brothers. They shared every cigarette, every bowl of rice. They promised to build an empire together and never betray each other. She turned around, looking at me, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. But people change, Wei. Ambition, money, it can corrupt even the purest of souls. You knew everything, didn't you? I asked directly. About what happened between father and Mr. Chen Feng, and about my true parentage. She didn't deny it. She just nodded slightly, her eyes brimming with tears. I knew. I've known for a very long time. Why did you stay silent? My voice trembled with an emotion I couldn't name. Why did you let me live a lie for 45 years? She walked closer to me, raising a trembling hand to touch my cheek. Because I love you, Wei. From the first moment your father brought you home, a tiny red-faced baby, I considered you my own. I gave you a family, a life. I didn't want you to grow up with the burden of the past, with hatred. That wasn't love, Mother, I said, my voice hardening. That was selfishness. You and Father robbed me of my identity, of the truth, just to protect your own false peace, to cover up Father's sins. She broke down in sobs, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. You can blame me, you can hate me. I'll accept it all. But Wei, I'm begging you. Please, stop. She knelt before me, an act that stunned me. My mother, the woman who had always been proud and held her head high, was now on her knees, begging me. Don't destroy this family, I'm begging you, she sobbed. It's all I have. Your elder brother, your younger sister. They may be wrong, they may be greedy, but they are your siblings. The Liang Corporation was your father's life's work. If the truth comes out, everything will collapse. The family's honor, this estate, and the future of your siblings. Can you bear to see that happen? She was using her final, most powerful weapon, a mother's love. She didn't deny the sin. She acknowledged it. She didn't use logic. She used emotion. She put me in an impossibly difficult position, to choose between justice for a dead father and the survival of the family that raised me. I helped her to her feet, my heart in turmoil. Mother, I never wanted to destroy anything. I just want to know the truth. You already know the truth, she said in desperation. Your father was wrong. He regretted it. He's dead now. Let the dead rest in peace, and let the living continue to live. Can you do that? What about my real father then? I asked, my voice growing sharp. Does he get to rest in peace? Does my real mother get to rest in peace? They lost everything, their lives, their fortune, and their only son. I have to do something for them. She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the desperation in her eyes turn into a cold hardness. She realized that emotion couldn't sway me. If you insist on being stubborn, she said, her tone changing, you won't just lose this family, Wei, you'll lose everything. Bao is not as gentle as you think. He will do anything to protect what he believes is his. Don't push things too far. It was a plea, and also a threat. I looked at the woman before me. She had raised me, cared for me, but she was also an accomplice in a monstrous lie. Her love, however real, was tainted by selfishness and fear. I'm sorry, Mother, I said, my voice low, but I can't stop. I turned and walked out of the villa. I didn't look back, even though I could hear her crying behind me. That night, as I drove back to the city, I felt a loneliness I had never known. I had lost my father, and now I had just severed the last bond with the mother who had raised me. I was no longer Liang Wei, son of the Liang family. I was just Wei, son of Chen Feng. And my journey for justice now had no turning back. After the conversation with my mother, I knew I was completely alone in this fight. Liang Bao would not sit idle, and my mother's threat was not an empty one. I needed an ally, someone I could trust, someone who didn't belong to the deceitful world of the Liang family, and most importantly, I needed a legal expert. I started digging for information about Chen Feng, my biological father. There was very little information online, just a few old news clippings about his company's bankruptcy, but one name kept reappearing in the old documents. Lin Zheng, the lawyer who represented Chen Feng's company at the time. After a few days of searching, I finally found his address. Uncle Lin, as people called him, was retired and living in a small house in an old neighborhood of Shanghai. The house was quiet, a stark contrast to the city's hustle and bustle. A bougainvillea vine covered the front gate. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding with a bit of nervousness. A moment later, a man in his 70s, with a full head of white hair but a straight posture, opened the door. He was wearing a simple linen shirt and a pair of reading glasses. His eyes behind the glasses were sharp and intelligent. "May I ask who you're looking for?" he asked, his voice calm and warm. "Sir, are you lawyer Lin Zheng?" He nodded, his eyes studying me. "I am. And you are?" "My name is Liang Wei. I have a very important matter I'd like to consult you about." Hearing the name Liang Wei, I saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes, but he said nothing, just stepped aside and gestured for me to come in. Uncle Lin's living room was as simple as his appearance, with old wooden furniture and a large bookshelf that took up almost an entire wall. The faint smell of old paper and tea hung in the air. He brewed a pot of Tiaguanyin tea, then sat down across from me. "You are Liang Jun's son," he stated, not as a question. "I saw you in the papers at his funeral. What brings you to me?" I took a deep breath. I decided to bet everything on this man. I took out the jade pendant and the small key from my pocket and placed them on the table. "I am not Liang Jun's son," I said. "I am the son of Chen Feng." Uncle Lin was stunned. He stared at me, then at the jade pendant and the key. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the key to examine it. "This is it. It's really it. The number engraved on this key." "You know about it?" I asked, my heart racing. He nodded, his eyes turning red. "Of course. I've been waiting for this day for nearly 40 years. He looked up at me, his voice choked with emotion. "Chen Feng was my best friend, and I was the one who helped him draft the will and hide it." A sense of relief washed over me. I had found the right person. I was no longer alone. Uncle Lin told me the story I only knew half of. He told me about their friendship, their dreams. He told me about Liang Jun's betrayal, the sophisticated and cruel tactics that had driven Chen Feng to a dead end. Before he died, Uncle Lin said, Chen Feng entrusted me with a copy of the will and all the evidence. He said, "If one day my son comes to you, please help him. Help him reclaim my honor." He designed the jade pendant and the key. This key will open a safe deposit box at an old bank, where the original will and the ownership documents are kept. He believed that one day Liang Jun, out of regret, would tell the truth. He did, I replied. In his final moments. We sat in silence for a long time. The pain of the past seemed to fill the small room. "What do you plan to do now?" Uncle Lin asked. "With these things, you could topple the Liang Corporation in an instant." I shook my head. I don't want to topple it immediately. I wanted to give them a chance. I tried, and they failed. My brother wanted to buy my silence. My sister used emotion to manipulate me. My adoptive mother used guilt to beg and threaten me. Uncle Lin sighed. I'm not surprised. Like father, like son. Liang Jun sowed the seeds of greed and deceit. How can he expect to harvest honesty? Now, they certainly won't sit still, I said. Especially Liang Bao. I need your help. I'm retired, he said, but a fire lit up in his eyes. But for Chen Feng, and for you, I'll make an exception. I'll fight this final battle. He stood up, went to the bookshelf, and took out a yellowed file. This is the copy of the will, and some of the evidence I've kept. We'll use this as our basis. The first thing we need to do is legally verify your identity. A DNA test with any remaining relatives of the Chen family, if any. Then, we'll prepare everything. They won't let us do that easily, I warned. I know, Uncle Lin smiled. A weary but determined smile. Liang Bao may be a shark in the business world, but I'm an old crocodile in the legal swamp. Let's see who swallows whom. For the first time since my father's death, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had an ally, a wise and strong advisor. Uncle Lin not only gave me legal support, he also gave me a connection to the father I had never known. When I left Uncle Lin's house, it was already late afternoon. The golden sunlight shone on the old rooftops. I knew the road ahead would be fraught with difficulties. Liang Bao and my family would not give up easily. But now, I was ready. This battle was not just about reclaiming property. It was about reclaiming a name, an honor, and a truth that had been buried for too long. And I would not stop until justice was served. Just as Uncle Lin and I predicted, Liang Bao was not one to sit and wait. After his attempts at bribery and coaxing failed, he began to act more decisively and insidiously. He couldn't attack me openly, as that would raise unfavorable suspicions. Instead, he chose to strike from the shadows. It all started subtly. I began to feel like I was being followed. A familiar black car would often appear near the university, or parked at the corner of the street opposite my apartment building. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I mentioned this to Uncle Lin. It's Liang Bao's men, Uncle Lin confirmed after I described the car. He wants to know what you're doing, who you're meeting. He suspects you're holding on to something more than just a vague deathbed confession. So what should we do? I asked. Let him watch, Uncle Lin smiled. We'll show him what we want him to see. You just go about your life as usual. Go to the university, teach, visit the library sometimes. As for our meetings, we'll be more careful. We started meeting in more discreet places, sometimes a small tea house in an alley, sometimes a park early in the morning. Meanwhile, Uncle Lin and the young legal team he trusted worked quietly. They had found a distant cousin of my biological father in the countryside, and we conducted a DNA test secretly. The results confirmed my blood relationship. The first legal brick had been laid firmly. But Liang Bao didn't just stop at surveillance. He made an even more venomous move. One afternoon, the dean of my department, Professor Wang, a man I had always respected, called me into his office. His expression was a little troubled. Professor Liang, he began, I've been hearing some unpleasant rumors about you lately. What rumors? I asked, a bad feeling rising in my gut. Professor Wang sighed. Some people are saying that after your father passed away, you suffered a great psychological shock, that you've been exhibiting unusual behavior, sometimes saying delusional, untrue things. Some are even concerned that your condition might affect your teaching. I was stunned. This was clearly a deliberate attack. Liang Bao didn't just want to know what I was doing. He wanted to destroy my credibility and reputation. If he could prove that I was mentally unstable, then any words, any evidence I presented later would be questioned. Professor Wang, those are complete fabrications, I said, trying to stay calm. I am perfectly healthy and sane. I believe you, Wei, Professor Wang said, but his eyes were still full of worry. But you know, in academia, reputation is everything. You should be careful. Perhaps you should take some time off? I understood his meaning. The rumors were starting to take effect. Liang Bao was trying to isolate me, to turn me into an unreliable person in the eyes of my colleagues and superiors. But the pinnacle of his malice was yet to come. A few days later, Liang Mei suddenly appeared at the university, right after I finished my lecture. She was waiting for me in the hallway, her eyes puffy, looking extremely distraught. Students passing by looked at us curiously. "Big brother," she sobbed, rushing to hug me. "I was so worried about you." I stood still, removing her hands. "What is it?" "I heard from elder brother." "You're not well," she whispered, loud enough for a few people nearby to hear. "You keep saying strange things. Mother is so worried at home she can't eat or sleep." "Big brother, we're family. If something is wrong, you should tell me. Let me and elder brother help you." I looked around. A few students and lecturers were stopping, looking at us with curiosity and pity. I suddenly understood. This was a carefully staged performance. She came here, playing the role of a sister worried about her mentally troubled brother, to reinforce the rumors Liang Bao had spread. They were working together to build an image of an unstable, pitiful, and unreliable Liang Wei. "I'm fine," I said, my voice as cold as ice, then sidestepped her and walked away. "Big brother, don't go," she called after me, her voice full of distress. "Please see a doctor with me. We can get you treated." Those words were like needles piercing me. They didn't just want to take my inheritance. They wanted to strip me of my dignity and sanity in everyone's eyes. They were willing to turn me into a madman to protect their lies. That night, I met Uncle Lin. The anger in me was boiling. "They've gone too far. I can't take it anymore. We have to act now." Uncle Lin listened to me calmly. When I finished, he just nodded. "I understand. Your anger is justified. But this is also a good sign." "Good?" I was surprised. "Yes. The fact that they have to resort to these dirty tricks proves they are very scared. They can't find any evidence against us, so they have to attack you personally. This means we are on the right track, and we are winning." He paused, looking at me seriously. "But you're right. It's time for us to switch from defense to offense. They want to act, we'll build them a bigger stage. A stage where, when the curtain rises, all the audience will see clearly who the real madmen are." A plan began to form in our minds. A plan not just to defend myself, but to set one final trap. A trap that, once they stepped in, there would be no escape. They wanted a psychological war. I would give them a war they could never have imagined. The attacks from Liang Bao and Liang Mei did not break me. On the contrary, they forged my will into steel. I realized that silence and patience were no longer enough. It was time for me to take the initiative, to set up my own stage, and force them to act according to my script. I began by changing my demeanor. Instead of avoiding them, I started to exhibit the abnormal behavior they wanted to see. At the university, I became more absent-minded, sometimes muttering unrelated historical names and dates to myself. I deliberately let a few colleagues see me looking at old documents about bankrupt companies from decades ago. I wanted Liang Bao, through his spies, to believe that I was truly obsessed with the past, that my mind was slowly losing its grip. Next, I called Liang Bao. My voice over the phone sounded tired and somewhat confused. "Elder brother, perhaps. Perhaps you were right. I'm not well." There was a moment of silence on the other end. I could almost picture the triumphant smile spreading across his face. "I told you so." His voice was falsely sympathetic. "It's okay, Wei. We're family. I'll help you." I want to settle this matter once and for all," I said, my voice trembling. "The thing about Mr. Chen Feng, it keeps haunting me. I want to meet with you, Mei, and Mother. Let's talk one last time. After that, I will do whatever you all arrange." This was the bait I cast. I was showing him a broken Liang Wei, ready to surrender. Of course, Liang Bao replied immediately, afraid I would change my mind. "When and where do you want to meet?" "This Sunday, at the family villa," I said. "I want to talk where Father was. I think that would be better." "All right, it's settled. You get some rest," he said, then hung up. He had taken the bait. He believed this would be the final meeting, where he and Mei would have complete control over me, perhaps forcing me to sign some power of attorney documents or agree to psychological treatment. He thought he had won. I then called Liang Mei and my mother, telling them the same thing. Their reactions were no different from Liang Bao's. Mei expressed joy that Big Brother is finally willing to listen, while my mother heaved a sigh of relief. Everything was set. The stage was the Liang family villa. The main actors were ready. Now it was time to prepare for the final act. I went to see Uncle Lin. "Everything is ready. This Sunday, At the Liang family home. Uncle Lin nodded, his expression grave. My team is also ready. We have prepared all the legal documents, from the DNA test results, a copy of the will, to evidence of the Liang Corporation's shady activities that I have collected over the years. But are you sure you want to do this way? Once the curtain is raised, nothing can go back to the way it was. I'm sure, I replied without a hint of hesitation. They chose this path, not me. They turned kinship into a war, and I will end it. Very well, Uncle Lin said. On that day, keep your phone connected to me. My team and I will wait at a nearby coffee shop. When you give the signal, we will be there within 5 minutes. What will be the signal? When you say the sentence, "It is time we restore honor to the deceased," that's when we'll move. The final days before the meeting passed slowly. I spent the time tidying up my apartment, packing up my precious books. I felt like I was preparing for an exodus, leaving an old life to start a new one. There was no more fear or anger, only a strange calmness in my heart, the calmness of a person about to face his destiny. On Saturday night, I stood in front of the mirror. The man in the reflection looked thin and pale, with dark circles under his eyes. It was part of the act. But deep in those eyes, there was a determination that had never been there before. I was no longer Liang Wei, the gentle, meek professor. I was the son of Chen Feng, and tomorrow I would reclaim justice for him. I took out the jade pendant. It was still cold and heavy in my palm. The key inside was the most crucial piece of evidence. Tomorrow, it would unlock not just a safe deposit box, but a truth that had been sealed for 40 years. The stage had been set, the script had been written, the actors had learned their lines. Tomorrow, the play titled The Liang Family would have its finale, and I would be the director of that final act. Sunday. The Shanghai sky was gray, the clouds hanging heavy like my mood. I drove to the villa where I had grown up, a place filled with memories that I now realized were part of a lie. Today, this place would become a courtroom. When I entered the living room, everyone was already there. Liang Bao sat in the largest armchair, a look of self-satisfaction on his face. Liang Mei sat next to my mother, holding her hand, playing the role of a filial daughter. My mother looked more relaxed, perhaps believing the storm had finally passed. They looked at me, their eyes filled with pity and a touch of victory. They thought the lamb was ready for slaughter. "Wei, you're here, have a seat," Liang Bao said, in the tone of the head of the family. I didn't sit. I stood in the middle of the room, facing all three of them. I had connected the call to Uncle Lin, the phone in my pocket, its microphone recording every sound. "I've thought long and hard," I began, my voice weak and tired, just as my role required. "These past few days, I've been in a panic. I'm sorry for making everyone worry." "It's okay, big brother," Mei said quickly. "As long as you realize there's a problem, that's good. We'll get through this together." "That's right, Wei," my mother added. "Everything will be fine. You just need to rest for a while." Liang Bao stood up and approached me. He placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that seemed friendly but was in fact an imposition. "Listen, Wei, I've contacted the best psychologist in the city. He'll help you. Also, so you can rest without worry. For the time being, let me manage all your legal and financial affairs." He couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to strip me of my autonomy immediately. He might even have had the power of attorney papers ready. "I understand," I said, bowing my head to hide the cold glint in my eyes. "I just have one final request. Before we end this, I want everyone to listen to a story with me, the story of Father and of Mr. Chen Feng." Liang Bao was a little impatient, but he still nodded. "Fine. Say what you want to say." I began to tell the story. I recounted what my adoptive father had confessed on his deathbed. I spoke of the betrayal, the seizure of the company, the unjust deaths of my biological parents. I spoke slowly, calmly, like a historian narrating a past event. As I spoke, their faces changed. Liang Bao's self-satisfaction turned into anger. Liang Mei's concern turned into panic, and my mother's relief turned into absolute horror. "Stop it!" Liang Bao roared as I finished. "You're really mad. How dare you make up such terrible stories about our father? Mother, Mei, do you see? He's completely lost his mind." "That's right," Mei chimed in, her voice shrill. "Big brother, you've become delusional from your obsession. We have to take you to the hospital right now." My mother just sat there, her face as white as a sheet, trembling without a word. They were acting exactly as I had predicted. They denied, attacked, and tried to prove I was insane. I looked directly into Liang Bao's eyes. You say I'm making things up? Then why did you offer me 10 million yuan to keep quiet? You say I'm delusional? Then why did our sister have to go to my university to perform a play to slander my reputation? Both of them were stunned. I didn't give them a chance to react. I looked at all three of them and said distinctly, word by word, you have lived in a lie for so long that you believe it's the truth. But today, the play must end. I took a deep breath and then said the signal phrase, it is time we restore honor to the deceased. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Liang Bao was startled. Who is it? I smiled, a cold first smile. The audience for the final act has arrived. The maid opened the door. Uncle Lin walked in, followed by two young lawyers and a notary. Their expressions were grave and professional. Liang Bao and Liang Mei were speechless. Who are you? Who let you in here? Liang Bao stammered. I am Lin Cheng, Mr. Chen Feng's lawyer, and now the legal representative of his sole legal heir, Mr. Chen Wei. Uncle Lin said, his voice echoing throughout the room. Uncle Lin placed a thick file on the table. In here are the DNA test results confirming Mr. Wei's identity. This is a copy of Mr. Chen Feng's will, made 40 years ago. And this is the evidence of Mr. Liang Jun's illegal seizure of the company. Nonsense! It's all fake! Liang Bao shouted, but his voice had lost its menace. I slowly took the jade pendant from my pocket. This is not fake. I handed it to the notary. Please verify this. Then, I took out the small key. And this is the key to open the original will, kept in safe deposit box number 372 at the Old Bank of Shanghai. Everything, from the company, this house, to every penny you are spending, legally belongs to me. A deadly silence filled the room. Liang Bao staggered, holding onto a chair. Liang Mei collapsed onto the sofa, her face as white as paper. My mother finally broke down crying, but it was the cry of complete collapse. The curtain had been raised. The light of truth had shone upon the stage. And the actors, after stripping off their masks, were left with only the nakedness of greed, selfishness, and fear. They had lost. Completely. The downfall of the Liang family was not as dramatic as one might imagine. It happened in a chilling silence. Liang Bao no longer screamed. He just sat there, his eyes vacant, staring into space. The empire he thought he would inherit had vanished into thin air in a matter of minutes. Liang Mei wept silently, her tears no longer an act, but of true despair. As for my mother, she just sat still, having aged a decade. Uncle Lin and his team worked efficiently. With the original will retrieved from the bank's safe deposit box and the irrefutable evidence, the legal transfer process was swift. The Liang Corporation, or rather the Chen Corporation, was officially returned to its rightful heir. I never went back to that villa again. That place had become a symbol of deceit, and I wanted nothing more to do with it. I gave Uncle Lin full authority to handle everything. A week later, I met the three of them one last time, at Uncle Lin's law firm. This was not a family meeting. It was a liquidation. They arrived, looking haggard and exhausted. Gone were the arrogance and manipulation. They were just defeated people. I sat across from them, a long wooden table between us, like an insurmountable distance. I have called you here today to announce my final decision, I began, my voice calm. Liang Bao looked up, a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes. Wei, after all, we were once a family. You won't throw us out on the street, will you? I looked at him, then at Mei and my mother. I will sell the entire Chen Corporation. I have no interest in business, and I don't want to keep anything that was built on betrayal. They were stunned. After selling the company and all related assets, including the villa, I continued, I will set aside a portion. Enough for Mother to live a comfortable life until her last days in a good apartment. Enough for you and Mei to have some capital to start over, cleanly. Consider it the cost for the 45 years of upbringing that Mr. Liang Jun provided me. I am repaying it in full. Is that all? Mei whispered, in disbelief. The luxurious life, the designer clothes, the travels, all about to disappear. That is all, I affirmed. That is the last act of compassion I can offer you. You have taught me a valuable lesson, that family is not always about blood, and money can reveal a person's true nature. For that lesson, I am giving you a chance to start over. I stood up. The remaining money, the largest portion, I will use to establish an educational and historical research foundation in my biological father's name, Chen Feng. His legacy will not be concrete buildings, but knowledge and truth passed on to future generations. I looked at them one last time. From today on, there is no connection between us. You have your lives, I have mine. Never look for me again. I turned and walked away, without a single glance back. I heard May's crying, my mother's heavy sigh. But I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no hatred, and no more pain. Just an emptiness, a complete release. In the months that followed, my life returned to its inherent tranquility. I was still a history professor, still standing at the lectern every day, sharing stories of the past with my students. The Chen Feng Foundation was up and running. The first scholarships had been awarded to talented but poor students. Occasionally I would hear news about them. Liang Bao tried to start a new business but failed. Liang Mei divorced her husband and lived an ordinary life. My mother lived quietly in a high-end apartment complex. They had become strangers, characters in an old chapter of a book that I had closed. One evening after class, I sat alone in my office. The setting sun cast a warm golden glow on the books. I took the jade pendant out of the drawer. It was no longer an object filled with secrets and sorrow. It was now just a memento, a testament to a journey I had undertaken. I was not Liang Wei, nor was I entirely Chen Feng. I was just myself, a person who had walked through the ruins of deceit to find the truth about himself. I had lost a family, but I had found my identity and peace of mind. And to me, that was a legacy more precious than any empire. Finally, I was free. My life, for the first time in months, found its rhythm again. The chaos had subsided, leaving an almost absolute silence. Every morning, I woke up in my apartment, no longer Liang Wei living under a shadow, not yet accustomed to the name Chen Wei. I was simply Wei, a history professor. My lectures seemed to have more depth, for I was not just teaching history recorded in books. I had lived through my own history, witnessed the fall of a small dynasty. The Chen Feng Foundation, under the management of Uncle Lin and a professional team, became my greatest solace. It wasn't just a block of assets, it was a living legacy. Reading the scholarship applications from poor students across the country, I saw the image of my biological father in them, a young man full of ambition but lacking opportunity. Approving each scholarship gave me a sense of purpose greater than any profit the Liang Corporation had ever generated. I had cut off all contact with the Liang family. I changed my phone number and asked Uncle Lin to handle all remaining legal matters. I wanted to bury that past, or at least tuck it away in a hidden corner of my mind. But the past, like a ghost, never truly vanishes. It just waits for a moment of weakness to reappear. One evening, while preparing a lesson plan, I received an email from a strange address. The subject line had only one word: brother. My heart skipped a beat. I was about to delete it, but a faint curiosity stayed my hand. I opened the email. The content was brief, with none of the usual flowery or tearful language. Brother, I know you don't want to see me again. I'm not asking for forgiveness, nor for money. I just want to meet you one last time, to return something to you. I will wait for you at the Serenity Tea House by West Lake at 3 p.m. on Saturday. If you don't come, I will understand. May. I read the email over and over. Her tone was different. There was no manipulation, only a weary resignation. Return something to me? What could it be? Everything of mine they ever had was never truly theirs. I couldn't sleep that night. A part of me screamed that this was another trap, another play. But another part, the rational mind of a historian, wanted to know. An unresolved event was always what bothered me the most. What was this something? Could it be the final piece of the story I needed to know? I called Uncle Lin the next morning and told him about the email. Don't go, Uncle Lin advised immediately. Nothing good can come from them anymore. You are free now. Don't let yourself be dragged back into that quagmire. I know, I replied, but there's something in this letter. It's different, and I want to end things definitively. Not with a confrontation, but with a complete closure. I won't go alone. Can you come with me? Just sit at another table. Observe from a distance. Uncle Lin was silent for a long moment. All right, he finally agreed. But if there's any sign of trouble, we leave immediately. Saturday, the Shanghai sky was unusually clear. The Serenity Tea House was nestled by the lake, a tranquil place true to its name. Uncle Lin and I arrived early. Uncle Lin chose a table hidden behind a potted plant, while I sat at an empty table near the window, with a clear view of both inside and outside. At exactly 3 o'clock, Liang Mei arrived. I almost didn't recognize her. No more designer dresses, no elaborate makeup, no sparkling jewelry. She wore a simple sweater and jeans. She looked thin and pale, her hair tied back carelessly. The aura of a wealthy socialite had completely vanished. She looked like an ordinary person, someone struggling with life. She saw me and nodded slightly, then sat down opposite me. She didn't dare to look me in the eye. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice hoarse. Silence descended. The waitress brought our tea. The light jasmine scent filled the air but couldn't dispel the awkward and heavy atmosphere between us. I wondered if the echoes of the past would ever truly cease. While I was confronting the ghost of Liang Mei, another ghost, Liang Bao, was digging his own grave. I did not actively seek news about him, but in a city like Shanghai, the downfall of someone who once stood at the pinnacle could never be a secret. It was Uncle Lin who brought me the news, not with a sense of triumph, but with a weary sigh. "Liang Bao has lost everything," Uncle Lin said during one of our meetings, a few weeks after my appointment with Mei. "The seed money you provided him, he threw it all into one final gamble." According to Uncle Lin, Liang Bao, with his arrogant nature and inability to accept defeat, did not use the money to rebuild a modest life. He considered it a humiliation. He believed he could reclaim everything with a single stroke of luck. He poured all the money into a ghost real estate project in a third-tier city, a project inflated with promises of huge profits in a short time. He borrowed more from loan sharks, betting everything on a hand he believed would bring him back to the top. "The project was a bubble," Uncle Lin explained. "It burst after just a few months. Liang Bao not only lost all your money but also incurred a massive debt with people who don't play around." I listened, with no expression on my face. This was a predictable outcome. Liang Bao wasn't defeated by me. He was defeated by himself, by his insatiable greed and arrogance. He was a moth drawn to the flame of wealth, and was ultimately consumed by it. "Recently, he's been seen frequenting casinos in Macau," Uncle Lin continued. "Perhaps he's trying to work a miracle. But luck doesn't smile on those who have lost all reason." "That is the path he chose," I said, my voice calm. "We owe him nothing more." "I know," Uncle Lin nodded. "I just wanted to let you know, so you can be careful. A cornered beast can do desperate things." Uncle Lin's warning came true sooner than I expected. Late one night, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, but then answered. "Liang Wei." The voice on the other end was hoarse, reeking of alcohol and desperation. It was Liang Bao. "What is it?" I asked, my voice cold. You ruined me," he roared. "It's all your fault. You took everything from me. Do you have any idea how I'm living now?" "That is the result of your choices, Liang Bao, not mine." "Choices," he laughed maniacally. "I had no choice. You pushed me to the edge. Now I need money. Just one last time. You have to help me. After all, I am your brother." "You are not my brother," I said decisively. "And I have no obligation to you." You will regret this," he screamed, his voice full of menace. "I won't let you live in peace. If I have to die, I'll drag you down with me." He hung up. I stood in the darkness of my room, the silence suddenly becoming menacing. The threat of a desperate man could not be taken lightly. I immediately called Uncle Lin. He called me. After hearing my account, Uncle Lin said immediately, "I will report this to the police tomorrow. At the same time, I will hire bodyguards for you. Don't go out alone for the time being." The following days, I lived in a state of high alert. 2 plainclothes bodyguards always followed me at a discreet distance. The sense of freedom I had just regained seemed to be snatched away again. I wasn't afraid, but I was tired. Why did the past have to cling to me like this? And then, the final news about Liang Bao arrived. Not by phone, but on the evening news bulletin. The Shanghai police, in cooperation with the Macau police, had cracked a major money laundering ring. Liang Bao was a key link in it. He was arrested while trying to flee with a suitcase full of counterfeit money. The image of him in handcuffs, his head bowed, his hair disheveled, was broadcast across the country. He would be facing a very long sentence. Looking at his dazed face on the television screen, I felt no satisfaction. I only felt a sense of emptiness. Liang Bao's path had reached its end. A path paved with arrogance and greed, and its final destination was a cold prison cell. His story was truly over, and I realized the sweetest revenge is not when your enemy is punished, but when you can continue to live your life in peace, leaving them behind with their wrong choices. Returning to the meeting by the lake. After the waitress left, Liang Mei finally looked up, but her gaze was still fixed on the teacup in front of her, not daring to meet my eyes. "Are you living well?" she asked, an awkward social pleasantry. "I'm fine," I replied. "What did you want to see me about? You said you wanted to return something to me." She nodded. She took a deep breath, as if to gather courage. Before I give it to you, can I say a few words? I didn't answer, but my silence was an assent. After everything happened, she began, her voice small and trembling. My husband filed for divorce. He said he couldn't be with a wife with a complicated family background and no more value to exploit. My friends, the ones I thought were close, they all deserted me. I have no money, no status. I suddenly realized that besides those things I have nothing. She gave a bitter laugh. Isn't it ironic? I was jealous of you my whole life. Jealous because you had knowledge, a rich inner world that I could never touch. I looked down on your poverty, yet I coveted your freedom of spirit. I thought money could buy everything, but I was wrong. It can't buy respect, it can't buy true friendship, and it certainly can't buy peace of mind. This was the first time I had heard such self-reflection from her. It didn't feel like an act. It was the confession of someone who had truly hit rock bottom. I'm not telling you this to ask for your pity, she continued, finally looking up at me. Her eyes were no longer teary, only filled with an endless fatigue. I just want you to know that. I understand now. I understand what elder brother and I did wrong. We were so blinded by money that we forgot what was truly important. She was silent for a moment, then took an old photo album from her bag, its velvet cover worn. She pushed it towards me. This is what I wanted to return to you. I looked at the album in surprise. What is this? It's old family photos, from when you, me, and elder brother were little. Mother was going to throw them all away. She said she didn't want to look at the past anymore. But I kept this one. She flipped through a few pages. Black and white and yellowed photos appeared. There was a picture of a beaming little Liang Wei next to a mischievous Liang Bao and a tiny Liang Mei. There was a picture of the whole family on a trip to the park. I know, most of our lives were a lie, she said, her voice choking. But I believe that in these moments, when we were just children, our smiles were real. Our sibling bond then was real, before money and secrets came between us. She pushed the album closer to me. I just want you to have it, as a reminder that there was a time, however brief, that we were truly a family. It's the only untainted memory I have left. And I think it belongs more to you than to me. After speaking, she stood up. I'm sorry for everything, brother. I'll be going now. She turned and walked away, without looking back. Her small, lonely figure blended into the crowd by the lake. I sat alone, staring at the photo album. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't forgive her. The wounds they caused couldn't be erased by a few words or an album. But I no longer hated her either. I only saw a pitiful person, a lost soul trying to find herself after everything had fallen apart. I flipped through the pages. The smile of the little Liang Wei in the photo was so carefree. That little boy didn't know that the father he admired was his real father's enemy. That little boy didn't know that the brother who often teased him would one day try to destroy him. That little boy knew nothing. I was no longer that boy, but a part of him still lived in me. I closed the album. I wouldn't throw it away. I would keep it, as she had said. Not to cling to a broken family, but to bury the past completely. To acknowledge that, in the darkness of lies, there were still small sparks of truth. And sometimes, to move forward, we need to look back one last time. If the meeting with Liang Mei was a glimpse into a withered past, the event that took place 2 months later was a door opening to the future. The Feng Educational Foundation held its first scholarship award ceremony. The ceremony was held formally in the auditorium of the university where I worked. This was the first time I appeared in public as the founder of the foundation, the son of Feng. I had hesitated a lot. I was a person who disliked attention. But Uncle Lin had persuaded me. This isn't for you, Wei, he said. This is for Feng. It's time to restore his honor publicly. For people to know who he was, not through news clippings about bankruptcy, but through the legacy he left for future generations. And so, I stood at the podium, in front of hundreds of students, professors, and journalists. I didn't talk about betrayal or family feuds. I only talked about my father, Feng. I talked about his dreams, his belief in knowledge, and how a person's legacy can be continued not through money, but by inspiring others. After the speech, I personally presented the scholarships to the 10 most outstanding students. When I read the last name on Chi, a petite female student with bright, intelligent eyes walked onto the stage. She came from a poor rural area in Henan province, the first in her family to go to university. When I handed her the certificate and shook her hand, she looked at me and said softly, her voice filled with emotion, "Professor Chen, thank you. You don't know how much this scholarship means to me and my family. Just call me Teacher Wei, I smiled. Keep up the good work. You have great potential. Teacher, she hesitated. There's something I want to tell you. It was the story of your father, Mr. Chen Feng, that inspired me to pursue history. I was surprised. My father's story? Yes, she nodded. Before, when I was researching the economic history of Shanghai, I could only find very little information about him, that he was a failed businessman. But I always felt something was not right. A history student's intuition told me there were hidden truths. His story taught me that history is not always what is written in books, and our duty is to find the truth behind the words. I want to become a historian who can do that. Her words were like a warm current flowing into my heart. For the first time, I felt a real connection to my biological father, not through a will or a fortune, but through the flame of passion in a young student's eyes. My father's legacy was not a lost company. His legacy was this: the inspiration for a young person to seek the truth. After the ceremony, Chi and I had a long conversation in my office. She was intelligent, eager to learn, and had a very sharp perspective on history. I decided to take her on as my research assistant. That day, as I drove home, I felt a gentle and profound joy. My battle was over, but my journey was not. Now, that journey was no longer about seeking the past, but about building the future. That future lay in students like Chi, in historical truths waiting to be discovered. I had reclaimed my father's property, but the most precious thing he left me was a purpose in life. I would continue my work as a historian, not just to teach, but to ignite the flame of seeking truth for the next generation. That was the best way to honor the name Chen Feng. Time passed, and the wounds of the past gradually faded into faint scars. I no longer jumped at the sound of an unknown number, no longer felt the sensation of being followed. Peace had truly returned, not the empty silence after a storm, but the tranquility of a placid lake. My work with the Chen Feng Foundation and mentoring Chi took up most of my time and thoughts. Chi was a very talented young woman. Under my guidance, she was undertaking a bold research project, rewriting the history of Shanghai's economic development in the 1982nd, focusing on the lesser-known entrepreneurs, those who were swallowed by sharks like Liang. She was giving a voice back to the forgotten, including my father. One evening, while reorganizing my bookshelf, I came across the photo album Liang had given me. I had put it away and almost forgotten about it. I hesitated for a moment, then took it out to look at it again. I sat down on the sofa, flipping through the pages. The same images: little Wei, little Bao, little Mei. They were laughing, playing. I looked at my own smile in the past. A carefree smile. I had a childhood, even if it was built on a foundation of lies. I no longer felt anger or pain looking at these photos. I only felt a distant nostalgia, a hint of regret for the children in the pictures. Regret for what they could have become, had greed and deceit not intervened. I was able to separate them. I could hate the people they had become, but I didn't need to erase the image of the innocent children they once were. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. But this time, I didn't feel anxious. I answered calmly. Hello? Excuse me, is this Teacher Wei? A middle-aged woman's voice, somewhat timid. I am a nurse, caring for Mrs. Liang at the Anping nursing home. My heart twinged slightly. A nursing home. So she had ended up there. Yes, this is he. Is something wrong? Oh no, nothing serious, the nurse said quickly. Her health is stable. It's just, lately she's been mentioning you. She doesn't ask for anything, just occasionally asks us. I wonder if my Wei is happy now, she asked again today, so I took the liberty of calling you. I was silent. A simple question. Is he happy? Not has he forgiven me. Not can he visit me. Just a pure concern. Perhaps having lost everything, facing the loneliness of old age, what was left in her was just a mother's affection. An affection, however belated and tainted, that still existed. Thank you for calling, I said, my voice low. Please tell her that I am living very well, very happy. Yes, I will definitely pass on the message. Thank you, teacher. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time. Would I visit her? Probably not. There are boundaries that, once drawn, should not be crossed. Forgiveness is not an obligation, but peace of mind is a choice. I had chosen peace. I had chosen not to let hatred continue to consume my life. I might not forgive them, but I was able to let them go. I put the photo album back on the bookshelf, not to hide it, but to preserve it. It was a part of my life's history, a painful but necessary chapter for me to be where I am today. The mirror of the past had shown me clearly who I was, and the path I had to take. I walked out onto the balcony, looking down at the lit-up city of Shanghai. The sparkling lights were like stars, each light a story, a destiny. My story had come to an end. An end with no reunion, no easy forgiveness, but with truth, justice, and most importantly, freedom. The road ahead of me was no longer shrouded in the shadows of the past. It was bright and clear, and it was waiting for me to walk on. And this time I would walk as myself, serene and steadfast.